Welcome back, everybody. This is Pro Football Enterprises. I am Ben Parker, joined as always by Austin Freed and Shane Ratliff. Really appreciate both of them coming in. We had a little bit of technical difficulties. I think all of that's not going to show up for you, the audience, but if it does at some point, we appreciate you hanging in there with us. We are proud to present Carnell Tate. He'll be somewhere at the top end of this draft, depending on who you are and what you need this year, but a privilege. We looked at him, we did a hard look at him several months ago, and we're doing another one, kind of a fresh take on it. And so we'll be able to provide you with some deeper and newer notes in addition to what we already laid foundation wise back in the late summer, early fall. So Carnell Tate, height 6'3", 192 is the most common things I found. I look forward to the NFL Combine when we can true up some of these heights and weights, and as well as the 40 times, but that's still ahead of us. The 24 numbers, very respectable at 52 catches, over 700 yards, 14.1 yards a catch, and 4 touchdowns. The 25 numbers, 51 catches. That amped up to way over almost 900 yards, 17.2 yards a catch, 9 touchdowns. I will say before I hand it over to Austin, if you see a number on here that is not correct, that's going to be my fault. I'm the one that does the numbers. Every once in a while, you will see a typo, so feel free to post it in the comments if you do see one. Let's get right into it. Austin, tell us about Carnell Tate.
Well, first I did want to touch on the height weight situation. I do think he's probably right around here. Just from like on the field when you look at him next to other players on the team and the opposing team, that's kind of the vibe I get. But there is an elephant in the room, and I mean that both physically and figuratively. And it makes this eval nearly impossible for me, and that is Jeremiah Smith. I mean, he is lining up next to Adonis on a lot of his reps, and it is just like Carnell Tate is a fantastic player. It's going to go in the first round, probably even the first half of the first round.
Yeah.
But when you watch his reps next to Smith, he looks like a college player next to an NFL player, and that's just sort of the reality of it, and it's hard to separate. When Jeremiah Smith's on the other side of the field, I just have to block that side of my screen, otherwise my eyes just go there instinctually. It makes this eval so hard because I see a lot of people talk about Carnell Tate being on the slower end, running somewhere in the upper 4.5s, even maybe even around the 4.6. I've seen people throw that out. He's not going to run in the 4.6s. He is to me, a 4.45 ish, maybe a 4.5 flat kind of guy. He just runs next to Jeremiah Smith a lot, guys. So yes, that to me is the discrepancy. Like just everything he does looks like it's slightly worse than it is because who he lines up with. And I think that also goes for the height and weight. He looks sometimes shorter and lighter
Mhm.
because Jeremiah Smith. But when you actually get into the Carnell Tate tape, he's shown a lot of what he did last year. I don't really think he has regressed in any ways. I think he has taken a step forward in basically every single category, just a slight step forward. And I think his route tree really got diverse compared to last year. But he is still the number two option. Last year, he was probably the number 2B. It was a much more dynamic offense last year, and I feel like he, played his role very importantly as sort of the third option, second option in some concepts. And this year he is the first option in some concepts, but overall the number two on the team in terms of just the pecking order of who's getting the ball. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I do love to see a guy who I plan on taking early in the first round have reps as a number one, and we just didn't really see that. Again, there are, I guess, individual reps where he is clearly the first target, and we see him play on the outside. It's not like he's one of those guys who's on the inside a lot. He's actually majority on the outside, but again, still like he's not the guy that the defense is like, hey, watch out for Tate. That's like he's the second guy whose name's on like on the whiteboard in the pregame, what film tape for the opposing team, the opposing defense. They've got Jeremiah's name circled in red 5 times, and then Tate's right under that. So again, it just makes the eval a little bit tougher for me. Things I talked about that I really loved about him when we did this, whatever, 6, 7 months ago, was his deep ball skills and his ability to get open in zone coverage. And I think that just continued to elevate itself, especially his ability to stack corners. That was something that I saw he was good at last year. I think he might be the best in this entire draft class at just purely stacking a guy, especially guys who are faster than him that would generally be able to have that step. He is so good with subtle head fakes and attacking leverage and just general deceptiveness to gain that step he needs. And like I said at the beginning, he's not fast, but he's fast enough to get that step and then usually maintain that until the ball's in the air and it's underthrown because that was a lot of that on the tape. In terms of the zone coverage though across the middle, I think this is really the most underrated part of his game. He is so good at feeling zones across the middle, whether he was a lot of dig routes I saw, but not just those slants, crossers, a lot of shallow routes across the middle with him and Jeremiah sort of crossing each other. They would give Carnell Tate the option to sit down if it's zone coverage, and he absolutely would do that. And it seems like he made the right choice every single time. I didn't have a single rep. I didn't watch every single game, but I didn't see a single rep. But I was like, oh, you should have kept going on that one, or you should have stopped on that one. He seems to play with a really high IQ against zone coverage, which is really important in the modern NFL offense and landscape to be able to do that kind of stuff. The last thing I have on him is like pressing at the top is he scored a lot more touchdowns this year. And I think that's one area that I was really looking for him to develop, especially as he moves up the depth chart a little bit in terms of targets. I was hoping he would sort of break out in the red zone, and he did score a lot of long touchdowns, but just the fact that he was able to get in the end zone a lot more consistently this year was a really big plus for me. And that really is something that instilled a lot of confidence in my eval of him.
Excellent work, Austin. And I will say, going all the way back to your original point about the height weight, there are guys whose height weights I distrust because it doesn't really look like it on the field. But I'm with you, 6'3", 192. That feels right to me based on, a lot of snaps I've watched, how he stacks up next to other players. That really does feel like a legit height weight to me. Shane, always good to have you on board. Give us a quick temperature update in your part of the country and then tell us about Carnell Tate.
Well, I mean, we're still below freezing. We're about to hit another run of negative 40 wind chill this
Hmm.
weekend. But I think it's apropos to what Austin discussed, though. So for me, cold is a different feeling than what cold would be in North Carolina and South Carolina. It's the same way when you look at Ohio State's wide receiving class. Brian Hartline has brought in so much talent year after year after year. You start to go like, well, he's not as good as Jackson Smith and Jigba. But then you realize, like, damn, he was really good. And then you stack it up and you go, Emeka, oh yeah, no, he was the top wide receiver on his team this year too. I think Austin nails it on this. If you had Carnell Tate on another team, he'd be your 1A above anything else. It wouldn't matter, quarterback, anything else like that. I think Austin also hit on, which I thought was the most important thing. Even when you're a number two, he increased the touchdown total. And then, like Austin said, deep ball was a talent. The route tree for me is the number one improvement he made. I think a lot of things he made incremental steps where you're like, okay, that's I can see where he's built off of that. But the breaks, the different looks that he gave teams this year, I think that proves that if you go to a team, he's prepared to be that number one guy. I think when you guys are talking about height and weight, I would imagine at the combine, he's actually probably going to weigh a little bit more than 193. I bet they put a little bit of weight on him. I think Austin's right, though. I think he's a 4'4", 4'5" guy. the ones that are thinking that he's 4'6", 4'7", like there have been talks where they think he's legit slow. I don't think there's any chance that that's going to happen. I think the combine's probably going to lock it in even better for him. The thing that I did see this year, and I think it's hard to tell because Ohio State was kind of back and forth. Some of those big games, you maybe would have liked him to be, step it up a little bit more, but not knowing how much they're having him be the number 2 guy, it's hard to see how that is because he had some great catches and some great games in some of those big ones, but that's the only thing it's the only knock for me. I think he has good hands, great off the deep ball, like Austin mentioned off the top. And I think he's definitely one of the guys where I think we rated him fairly, like Austin said 6 months ago. But I think what we said needed improvement. He's one of the guys that legitimately went and improved himself in all factors. And I think that's only going to help him going into the draft.
Yeah, agreed. Excellent work, Shane. The point about what we did 6 months ago, Shane, because we all liked him 6 months ago, 5 months ago, whenever it was we did it. And yet, we're coming up with him even being a little bit better and improved off of that, which is not easy to do, but he's put in the work. I can tell that he has put in the work. My notes, here we go. Then we'll go back to each of you for final thoughts. There aren't too many things coaches ask wide receivers to do that Carnell Tate can't do. There's a couple of things, but not many. Generally speaking, depending on the draft or the attributes, some guys might be able to do it better, but he's got a very well-rounded game and he does a lot of things very well. He just doesn't come up deficient in a lot of areas. Hands, excellent hands, clean, strong. I really like his hands. Good work there. The routes, y'all both already mentioned the routes. They were good in 24. I was satisfied with the 24 routes. They're even better in 25. They're nuanced. They're more comfortable. He sets up the defensive backs. He sets up his moves. So I thought that was enhanced, and that really does show that he is putting in the work. Because if he wasn't, those routes wouldn't look sharper and more comfortable and more nuanced, and they all do. And that means he's putting in the work on these routes. So I was impressed by that. Size, physicality category is excellent. He has good size and he uses it. So I really enjoy that. The vertical jump adds to his height. We know guys who have decent height, but the vertical jump doesn't really boost it. His does. He's got a good vertical jump that boosts his height. He wins the 50-50 jump ball a lot. He really controls that more often. It's probably more like 65-70% he's winning those jump balls. And he uses his body well on contested catches. So he's very comfortable doing that. I wouldn't say that he is physically dominant, but he does seem to enjoy the physicality and use his height and physicality well. The speed, you both mentioned it. I think it's very good, but not elite. It's just not anywhere near the elite speed guys. But I did not look at him as slow when I watched the tape. And again, that's over the 24 season and the 25 season. I just don't see slow here. This guy looks like he's got plenty of speed, and I'm just fine with what he's probably going to turn out. He was open a lot more often than he got the ball this year, to be honest. There are probably reasons for that. I won't go into those, but he was open more often. His numbers could have gone up, and had he been on a different team, different offense, maybe they would have, but that's just the way it was this year. The deep ball, I think Austin mentioned that. I thought he exploded in this category in 25. So much of his work in 24 was really zone work and in routes and stop routes. And you see that yards per catch there move from 14.1 to 17.2. He had quite a few more deep balls, and Austin alluded to that were successful this year. And so much of that really, though, is based on Jeremiah Smith being there. A lot of teams just decided we are not going to let Jeremiah beat us deep consistently this year. So Ohio State at some point this season started using Jeremiah Smith for a lot of the shorter routes and allowing Carnell Tate to carry the deeper routes. So, depending on how much weight you want to attribute to that, but he did at least show that he can carry the deep ball to some degree, even though some of that may have been built off the Jeremiah Smith presence. Middle work, beautiful in routes versus zone. Austin mentioned that. Solid versus man. He's okay with versus man, but really in zone is where he tends to shine. And then boundary work. I really like his boundary work and red zone work. And again, he's using his size for that, right? We tend to see the bigger guys who can use the sidelines and the red zone areas for their height. Yak. He has excellent yak versus zone. Again, Austin already mentioned that he works very well versus zone. So whether he settles in or runs through, his yak is good. Not as much versus press man or off man. If you're looking for a little bit of a knock here, when he's press man or off man covered, they do tend to bring him down fairly quickly. You're not going to see a ton of yak yardage at that point. But again, that's just part of his game. Not terribly elusive. Won't break a whole lot of tackles. There's other receivers who break a lot more tackles and have a lot more juke moves than what he's got. But still, the yak is there versus the zone. Let's talk about the blocking for a second, okay? Always exciting for wide receivers, okay? So he doesn't necessarily look like he relishes or enjoys it, but he puts in the work. His blocking is generally good. Often it's technically excellent. You see him set his feet, plant his hands. Very often his blocking is excellent. He really does sell his routes well, even if he knows the ball isn't coming his way. He will sell those routes. So I appreciate that. But on running plays where he knows that he's integral to that blocking, it's coming his way, or they've even positioned him to be the lead blocker, he gets it done. I mean, he really does a professional job here. Very impressed every single time that he knows his blocking is key, he will get it done. A few times, if he knows the ball's going the other way, he won't put in as much effort. But when he knows it's coming his way, the blocking is fantastic. And you can even see if he misses a block, and it doesn't happen much, where he actually misses one that was important to the run play, you can see that it bothers him. And again, Ohio State ran the football a lot this year, considering they have Max Clare and Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. They ran the football a lot, and Carnell Tate blocked a lot. I'll bet he blocked as much from his wide receiver position as some tight ends do for other colleges this year. It was a ton of blocking he did, so I appreciate the professionalism that he's already showing, even here playing for Ohio State. So that's my notes here on Carnell Tate. I've got a top 20 grade on him. That would hold up for me in any draft, any year, top 20. But for me in this year's draft, I really figure top 10, top 12 is about where I'm going to be looking at him at. So, Austin, back to you. Final word on Carnell Tate.
Yeah, I do think there are some knocks on his game. To me, as you kind of mentioned, the yak is just not really there for me. I don't think he has the lateral agility to necessarily be a true yak threat.
Right.
And then there are some guys who don't have that who still manage to be yak threats just due to their ability to break tackles, and he just doesn't have that either. So
Right.
he's not necessarily elusive or a tackle breaker after the catch. So very lacking in that department for me. I
Mm-hmm.
also noticed that most of his big games, and this is kind of a fake knock, but at the same time, it matters. Most of his better performances were against smaller teams.
Mm-hmm.
As I was trying to pull up the game log,
Yep.
but yeah, he most of his big breakout games were against the non super important high uh I don't know, highly ranked teams, I guess is the way
Yes.
I'll put it. Like he had 183 yards, which was his best game against Minnesota,
Mm-hmm.
101 yards against Ohio, 111 against Wisconsin. He did have a big game against Penn State, but they were kind of iffy this year. Against Indiana and Miami at the end of the year, 45 and 37 yards. Against Michigan, 82 is a nice performance. Against Texas, their first game of the year, only 49 yards. So kind of disappearing in some of the bigger games is a little unfortunate for me, and I don't love that from him. I think that's honestly just as much of a knock on the offense as a whole, though, as it was him specifically. And then the last thing I had here as a negative was I don't necessarily love his release package. I think he got faster off the line this year, which was a knock I had on him the last time we did this, is I thought his first step was kind of slow. When the DBs are off, his first step to me is much better this year. I think he added that little bit of burst. But again, when he's in press for someone who has that height, he presents a big wide box for DBs to get their hands and jam on him. And he doesn't necessarily get super skinny or anything off the line to avoid those. And so that's another area that I am a little bit iffy on him. Overall, though, I'm probably just a slightly lower than you, Ben. I would have him as a late first round pick in my rankings where it's not looking at each draft class individually. But as you said, Ben, this draft class is, I think, particularly weak just overall, and I think it's going to slide him into the top 15 of this draft class, especially for a position, and that's not also is not positionally adjusted for positional value, and wide receiver is a high value position that does get a little bit boost in drafts. So, to me, if he goes inside the top 12, I wouldn't be shocked or worried about that this year. I think that's somewhere realistic would be in the 8 to 12 range in terms of this draft specifically. But, you know, again, last year's draft class, I wouldn't have him up that high.
Austin, I thought you made some great points right in there, and I won't rehash all of them. But again, we're talking about what makes the difference between elite prospects versus very good ones, what might ideally lead to all pro or Hall of Fame careers versus plus starters or Pro Bowl-ish careers. These are the differences. So I really thought everything you packaged right there, the get off all of the line, the making yourself skinny, all of those things, the not coming up huge in big games versus the more talented defenses, all of that is legit. So I excellent work right there. All of that perfectly valid. Shane, final word from you, man.
My big concern is basically what Austin hit on. I think in the NFL, he's going to get pressed until he proves that there's another trick for him getting off the ball. Because, like Austin said, if you don't have true, legit acceleration in the NFL, that DB is going to be able to match up with you. So they'll play press coverage until you give them a reason not to. Um, I'm with Austin. I think he's a late round. But with the way both of you guys pictured it, what I think happens this year is there's going to be a run on wide receivers, and that's going to help him because people will go, okay, I need to go get mine. And I think he's the guy that moves up on that. Because if he had even a little bit more speed, I think that puts him at a different echelon. But there's going to be guys that are going to be flat out burners compared to him, and guys that do what he does at least as well, and where people can project them to do more. So I think you guys are probably dead on. He probably is within the top 15, talent wise. And like Austin said, if this was last year, he'd be hard pressed for me to make it before early second round. So, I mean, like, I think this year is going to help him. I think it's a down year all around, but I think somebody gets a run on wide receivers and that helps him move up.
That's Carnell Tate, everybody. We appreciate Austin and Shane doing the work. Thank all of you for coming by. So this is Pro Football Enterprises. You'll see the Box Score Network logo in the lower right corner as well. So for the most part right now, we're sending all of the defensive prospects to Box Score. So if you want to check out our work on the defensive guys, it's over there on Box Score. Most of our offensive output is here on the Pro Football Enterprises side. Thank you very much, and goodbye.